The 1993-94 Arkansas Razorbacks found themselves in a tough position. Fans and media expecting them to be in the Final Four, maybe win the national championship. Ranked in the nation's top 10 from the very beginning, it was tremendous pressure for any team to bear. But this wasn't just any team. The Hogs possessed awesome ability, to be sure, but they were unusually young, relatively inexperienced. With only 2 seniors on the roster and a starting lineup that on most nights consisted of 3 juniors and 2 sophomores, the Razorbacks repeatedly played with maturity that transcended their tender ages. In the process, they gave us unparalleled moments of joy and excitement. It was a lump-in-your-throat kind of season for these high-flying, sharp-shooting, defense-playing Razorbacks. They always lived up to their billing, and the result was pure hog heaven. The impending debut of the glorious new Bud Walton Arena. The building benefited from a couple trial runs in preseason exhibition games, but those wins only heightened the hype for the regular season. At long last, it was time to play ball in Bud Walton Arena. With a listed capacity of 19,200, more than 20,000 fortunate souls squeezed into the beautiful new facility for the season opener against Murray State. It was indeed a memorable night, with the spirit of Barnhill released before the game and the newest edition of Nolan Richardson's Razorbacks running rampant once the game began. Just 4 minutes in, Arkansas, ranked 3rd in the preseason polls, had already staked a 13-0 lead. The new house was rocking early. Everyone got into the act, with 14 different Razorbacks scoring in the 93-67 win over the Razors, coached by former Richardson assistant Scott Edgar. A win over Murray State was well and good, but the real festivities were reserved for the nationally televised dedication game against Missouri. Bud Walton was honored for his contribution that made the marvelous new facility a reality and 20,212 fans found their way in for the celebration. The Tigers, who would eventually go undefeated in the Big 8 Conference, figured to be much tougher competition than outmanned Murray State. Nothing could have been further from the truth. It wasn't close for long. A 27-6 run, capped by 2 Clint McDaniel three-pointers, helped the Hogs put the game out of reach before halftime. But Dolan Richardson's teams aren't known for 20 minutes of hell, so in case there was any doubt, Arkansas continued to expand its lead in the second half, recording 18 steals on the night and hitting 16 of 25 treys. No starter played more than 21 minutes, but it didn't seem to make much difference. It was an awesome 52-point victory, 120-68. Heading into the game with Northwestern State, Arkansas was ranked second in the land and stood a good chance to move up with a win, because #1 Kentucky had lost to Indiana earlier in the day. But a funny thing happened along the way to the top spot. For the first time in the young season, the Razorbacks actually trailed. The Demons built a 9-point lead with 6 minutes left in the first half. Then Arkansas fought back, and newcomer Alex Dillard began his trek toward folk hero status, pouring in 16 points in just a minute 53 seconds. Range anywhere in the front court. Gets it again. Launches another three. Good! Dillard. They're saying shoot from the backcourt. Dillard pulls up. Three-pointer. Good! Only the halftime horn could stop the onslaught. And when it did, Arkansas found itself up by 19. Playing time was plentiful for the Razorback bench in the second half, and Arkansas again cruised to an easy win, 111-76. For the first time since February 1978, Arkansas was America's top-ranked team. It was nice to finally return to the summit, but Nolan was more concerned with his team's trip to the pyramid. He was quick to remind his squad that while being #1 in December was fine, the real mission was to rate as #1 in April. And heading to Memphis for the season's first road game, the Hogs quickly fell behind Memphis State. They trailed for most of the first half until freshman Darnell "Tank" Robinson put the Hogs in front with 4:23 left in the first frame. He then continued to showcase his abilities. Dwight Stewart helped start the second half show with 2 quick treys, and the Razorbacks were rolling. Displaying the balance and depth that would be the team's best asset all year, 6 Razorbacks scored in double figures, led by Corliss Williamson's 18. What had been close for a while ended up an easy-looking 18-point victory. This is how legends are born. By the time it was all over, Alex Dillard, the 25-year-old overnight sensation, had set the school and Southeastern Conference records with 12 three-point field goals on 22 attempts. His 39 points led Arkansas to a 123-66 win over outmanned Delaware State. And while outside was where it was against the Hornets, inside worked effectively against Jackson State, with Corliss Williamson powering his way to 25 points and 10 rebounds. Corey Beck chipped in 23, mostly in the paint points. And Dwight Stewart pulled down a career-best 12 boards in the 16-point win. In spite of 27 turnovers, Arkansas was out of the gates and 6-0 on the year. It didn't look quite so simple against a talented Tulsa team. Nolan Richardson returned to his old stomping grounds and almost saw the Hogs' #1 ranking lost in the hurricane. Untimely injuries to blossoming freshmen Lee Wilson and Darnell Robinson left the Razorback bench a little shorter than usual. But Tulsa's star newcomer, Shea Seals, was also sidelined by injury. In a back-and-forth battle, neither team led by more than 6 in the second half. Dwight Stewart and Corey Beck both fouled out after playing just 14 minutes, and the situation was starting to look a little grim when Tulsa extended its lead to 74-68 with 9:36 left on the clock. But Scotty Thurman answered right back, and the tussle in Tulsa raged on. The Hurricane took a 1-point lead with 1:22 left in regulation. But Corliss Williamson evened the score at 84 with a free throw. He would finish the night with a career-high 27 points. Neither team was able to score in the final minute, and the contest headed to overtime. Junior Clint McDaniel, performing in front of his hometown crowd, made a three-point play the old-fashioned way, and Arkansas held a harrowing 2-point lead as the OT clock wound down to below a minute. With 24 seconds left, Alvin Williamson delivered for Tulsa, and the score was tied again. But it was the other Williamson, Corliss, who decided the game.
Set it again for a guard, either Scotty Thurman or Clint McDaniel. Down low it goes to Corliss Williamson. Drive shot is up, good.
Back home after a short Christmas break, Arkansas entertained more than 20,000 happy fans, including President Bill Clinton and his family. It marked the first time a sitting president had attended a college basketball game, and the first family was treated to an awesome display of Arkansas talent in a 129-63 dismantling of Texas Southern. The Razorbacks set a new school record by reining in 20 trays on the night, and Davor Rilatz's slam in the closing seconds capped his career-high 18 points to lead all scorers.
All right, everybody work now. We got to keep working now.
Another team from Texas arrived in Bud Walton Arena to start the new year. This time it was former Southwest Conference nemesis SMU. The, as always, awesome defensive pressure forced 30 Mustang turnovers, including 17 Razorback steals. But the Arkansas lead was only 6 at the break. The Hogs were hot in the second half, though, hitting nearly 70% of their field goal attempts. They ran off to a 26-point victory over the Ponies. The 9-0 start was the best ever for a Richardson-coached Arkansas team, and now it was time for the ones that really counted. Beginning their defense of the SEC Western Division crown, the Razorbacks easily beat Ole Miss in the conference opener 87-61. With a 10-0 record resting in their pockets, the Hogs were completing their 5th straight week as #1 in the national polls. Alabama, meanwhile, was struggling at 3-5. So when the Razorbacks traveled to Tuscaloosa, many fans assumed the result was a foregone conclusion. But they didn't count on the revitalized Tide team, which apparently had decided this game could make or break its season. The Hogs had their chances, but weren't able to capitalize, and they were handed their first loss of the season. Just 3 days later, another league match came down to the closing seconds. Dale Brown's LSU Tigers rolled into Bud Walton Arena and rolled up a healthy 9-point halftime advantage. There's no telling what Coach Richardson said to his troops in the locker room, but it obviously was effective. In less than 4 minutes, Arkansas had erased the deficit and taken the lead. Corliss Williamson was dominant once again. He hit 11 of 13 field goals, finishing with 24 points and 8 rebounds. Behind his efforts, Arkansas was able to hang on, barely. Out on the road at Auburn, Arkansas was facing another SEC Western Division Tiger fight. Once again, the Razorbacks would have to rally to pull it off. Suiting up for Auburn were Wesley Person and Aaron Swenson, 2 players who eventually earned first-team All-SEC recognition by the league's coaches. Not to be outdone, sophomores Scotty Thurman and Corliss Williamson posted 54 points and 16 rebounds for the Razorback cause. Auburn posed no serious threat in the closing minutes as the Razorbacks repeatedly paraded to the free throw line and made most of their shots. The 117 points were the most Arkansas had scored in an SEC game, and it was enough for a 12-point victory. Mississippi State was on a mission. Brimming with a crop of talented newcomers, the Bulldogs owned the early Western Division lead, and they wanted to prove they could play with anybody. So when the Razorbacks walked into Humphrey Coliseum in Starkville, it was like walking into a den of pit bulls. The Hogs spent the game's first 10 minutes building a 10-point lead. As quickly as Arkansas built the advantage, though, Mississippi State eradicated it. For the game, Arkansas made less than 34% of its shots from the field, as well as only 46% from the line, and the Bulldogs never trailed in the second half. The outcome was too close to call. With the frenzied crowd roaring, Arkansas had its chance at the end, but Alex Dillard's attempt was off the mark. And in the blink of an eye, the Hogs had fallen to 3-2 in conference play. And the Razorbacks evidently decided that 2 in-season defeats were more than enough. They weren't going to let it happen again. South Carolina found that out the hard way. Corliss Williamson accounted for 15 points in the first half. He would complete his performance with 27 on 10 of 12 shooting from the field. In fact, his keen precision and close to the basket play up to that point ranked him 4th nationally in field goal accuracy. The Gamecocks never posed a serious threat, and Arkansas ran away with it in the end. Victory wouldn't be quite so easy in Knoxville, where Wade Houston's Tennessee team did all it could to pull off the low-scoring upset. Arkansas entered the contest, averaging an eye-popping 97 points per game. But the Vols forced a more deliberate style. Getting the first starting nod of his career, Nabor Rematz contributed 12 points and 9 rebounds to the cause. And Alex Dillard found his groove over a 3-minute span in the first half. When Dillard's turn was done, though, Tennessee's Cortez Barnes matched him shot for shot to pull the Vols out of the 10-point hole in a hurry. Another timely three by Barnes tied the game again midway through the second half. And try as it might, Arkansas had not been able to pull away from the persistent Vols, who even staked a 5-point lead with 7 minutes left. But Arkansas never flinched. Corliss Williamson tied the game in the closing minutes. After a couple of UT free throws, Corey Beck retied it at the line with less than a minute to play. The pressure was on the Volunteers, and LaMarcus Golden delivered for them with 21.3 seconds showing. Arkansas trailed by 2, and the stage was set.
64-62, Arkansas leads it. Here's Thurman out on the left side for 3, good!
Tennessee had one last chance after a timeout, but couldn't answer. Arkansas had survived a very close call. By scoring the first 8 points of the game against Vanderbilt, Arkansas showed early it wouldn't need any last-minute heroics to start the month of February. Ronnie McMahon tried to keep the Commodores close, and he succeeded for a while. But Scotty Thurman's three-pointer early in the second half ignited a dizzying 19-0 Arkansas run.
Crawford to Thurman. Thurman will drive right side, pulls up, 8-footer, good by Scotty Thurman. Arkansas gets it to Crawford, down low, posting up, spins on McCaffrey to Thurman. Back to back, Crawford. He's open for 3, good by Roger Crawford. To McMahon, McCaffrey penetrates, knocked away, Arkansas with a steal. Ahead to Crawford for the slam dunk. Ahead to Alex Dillard, lob to Corliss Williamson on the alley-oop for the slam dunk. Defenders, pulls up, spins it out to Beck. Thurman for 3, good! Scotty Thurman with his second 3.
The scoring spree quickly put the game out of reach. Big Nasty led the way down low with 24 points, and Roger Crawford chipped in 16 of his own. Halfway through the Southeastern Conference season, Arkansas's conference record stood at 6-2. Now, midway through the taxing league schedule, Arkansas paused to play Montevallo. Originally, the Hogs had planned for a high-profile non-conference matchup on national television. But when that deal fell through, the Falcons were more than happy to serve as warm-up fodder for the impending clash looming against the Kentucky Wildcats. An early rain of three-pointers ensured that the game would never be close. The Hogs cruised to a 131-63 win for the team's highest point output of the season and the second largest victory margin in school history. But one of the year's biggest tests was awaiting in Lexington, where the fourth-ranked Wildcats hadn't lost in Rupp Arena since the last time Arkansas rolled through in the regular season, a span of 33 games. The Big Blue House was packed and pumped, fully expecting a bountiful pig roast at the expense of the third-ranked team in the land. For a long time, it looked like the crowd would get just what it wanted. UK sophomore Roderick Rhodes helped the Wildcats explode out of a deadlock at 22. Over a 3.5-minute span, Kentucky built a 15-point lead that clearly had the Razorbacks flustered. Nolan Richardson knew he needed a timeout to regroup, and an over-exuberant Rose helped the University of Arkansas cause by drawing a technical foul for taunting. Scotty Thurman made both technical free throws, and Davor Rimac sank a three-pointer to promptly trim 5 off that deficit. Revitalized now, Arkansas pulled within 6 points at the halftime horn. The momentum now belonged to the Razorbacks. Kentucky trying to hold them off to start the second half, but it was no use. By capitalizing on fast break opportunities, the Arkansas surge continued until Scotty Thurman evened the score. The Razorbacks never trailed again. Corliss Williamson scored 21 and posted a career-high 14 rebounds. Thurman, meanwhile, finished with a game-high 26 points to help keep the Wildcats at bay. Kentucky did manage to pull within 2 late in the game, but Arkansas was the better closer and headed home with a 17-2 record to show for it. The Razorbacks couldn't have been happier.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Good job. We're back.
We do it all the time.
Yeah, boy.
We do it all the time, man. You let me
Everybody, boy. Grab a seat real quick.
Grab a seat. That's where to go, man. Way to go, man. Way to go.
Hey, boy, we made free throws. Y'all beat them 20. You beat them 20 easy, but that's all right. I want you to listen. I'll tell you what. You're down 15, you come back. But then I tell you what, you remember I told you that the thing that's going to have to happen is the bench got to come to play?
Way to go, man.
That's what they did. They came to play. They did a hell of a job because I was able to rest them guys for a long, long time. Matter of fact, they increased the lead. So that was a great, that's what we got to play like. You see, you came over here and you gave what you're supposed to give to win.
The schedule got no easier on a Saturday afternoon in Fayetteville. The Eastern Division leading Florida Gators came seeking an attention-grabbing win against the SEC's highest-ranked and brightest shining team. Corliss Williamson, who scored 20 points, took over early in the second half. Ultimately, Arkansas had too many weapons for the Gators to contain, and the Razorbacks slammed the door on a 12-point win. The Bud Walton Arena attendance record fell once again, with 20,262 eager for a look at an important conference clash with Alabama. Suddenly, thanks to weekend losses by numbers 1 and 2, North Carolina and Duke, Arkansas had reclaimed the top spot in the polls. It couldn't have come at a more appropriate time. With the Crimson Tide in town, the Hogs saw an opportunity to exact revenge from the team that had knocked them from the #1 ranking earlier in the year. A 19-4 Arkansas run at the start of the second half essentially decided the outcome. The Razorbacks were in firm command the whole way home. The 102-81 final catapulted the Razorbacks to a 19-2 record. They'd have to hit the road for number 20. Arkansas returned to Memphis for the second time during the season to face Ole Miss in the Pyramid. Or was it the Pygamid? It might as well have been for all the Razorback rooters in attendance. Wearing down Ole Miss, the Razorbacks pulled away to a 17-point victory. The Georgia Bulldogs were the lone remaining team from the SEC's Eastern Division on the Arkansas regular season schedule. The Razorbacks had already faced the other 5, and they had already beaten the other 5. They went to Athens looking to make it a perfect 6-for-6. Dwight Stewart helped keep Arkansas close after the Bulldogs jumped out to a quick lead. And a Scotty Thurman dunk didn't hurt either. But thanks to Georgia's big trees planted in the paint, the Bulldogs out-rebounded Arkansas by 15 on the night and held the lead for the first 10 minutes. A 23-9 U of A stretch late in the first half took care of that. Corliss Williamson highlighted the momentum swing, and the Razorbacks picked up right where they had left off in the second half. Scotty Thurman led all scorers with 25 points. The sophomore also chipped in 8 rebounds, 4 steals, 2 blocks, and 2 assists. When you added it all up, it meant the Hogs had beaten the Dogs 74-65. Back at Bud Walton Arena, Thurman continued his sterling efforts on the way to SEC Player of the Week honors. This time, it was the Auburn Tigers who had to face the onslaught of his 21 points. Thurman was hardly alone, however. Corliss Williamson was also a key contributor, posting 20 points and grabbing 11 rebounds. And big dog Dwight Stewart, with 16 points and 9 rebounds, ensured that he wouldn't be remembered solely for his spot on the SEC Academic Honor Roll. The Razorbacks never trailed after the opening basket. Final score, Arkansas 91, Auburn 81. March had arrived and one road game remained on the schedule. Victories rarely come easily at Pete Maravich Assembly Center in Baton Rouge. But if Arkansas wanted to win the SEC regular season crown, it had to have this one against LSU. It proved to be an early dose of March Madness. Dale Brown's team was struggling to the conclusion of a disappointing season, but that made the talented Tigers all the more dangerous in their lair. Grabbing the early advantage, LSU relinquished the lead only briefly in the high-scoring first half. But outscoring your opponent 11-zip in 2.5 minutes can turn things around in a hurry. Corey Beck started the streak. It also included baskets by Corliss Williamson. The Arkansas lead expanded to as many as 8 points as the intense battle raged on, but the Hogs couldn't hold it. Clarence Caesar torched Arkansas for 33 points and put the Tigers on top by 3 with 1:29 left. But Scotty Thurman, who had finished with 27 points of his own, had an answer. LSU scored the next 4 points, however, on an Andre Owens bucket and 2 Ronnie Henderson free throws. LSU made 34 of 41 charity tosses on the night. Corey Beck's putback pulled the Hogs within a pair at 92-90. But when Roger Crawford's foul stopped the clock, there were a mere 10 ticks left. Owens went to the line and made the first for a 3-point lead. A second free throw would clinch it.
Thurman gets the ball ahead to Alex Dillard, fakes his man, puts up a three, good! Alex Dillard with a three. And we're tied at 93 with 4.1 seconds to play.
The lead seesawed in the overtime period. Caesar made a clutch play that had LSU back in front by 2. But there was enough time left for Arkansas to work its magic.
Out on the floor for the Hogs. Thurman, he'll rain the three, good!
LSU couldn't find a sufficient answer for Thurman's poise. Alex Dillard's 2 free throws left the scoreboard reading 108-105 Arkansas. With seniors Roger Crawford and Ken Biley playing in front of the home crowd for the final time, Arkansas concluded the regular season by hosting the Mississippi State Bulldogs. A victory would mean a sweet finish to the Hogs' third SEC Western Division title-winning season and second overall conference crown. Crawford hit an early three-pointer, but Mississippi State managed to grab the lead several times in a nip-and-tuck first-half affair. As usual, however, an early second-half run. This time it was a 14-4 count, created some breathing room for Nolan's troops. Corliss Williamson went to the free throw line 15 times in the game and made 13. That, in conjunction with his prowess from the field, resulted in 27 points for Big Nasty, tying his career best. He also cleaned the glass for 9 rebounds. In all, it was an appropriate conclusion to his Southeastern Conference Player of the Year campaign. The Bulldogs were unable to keep up, and the Hogs sailed to a satisfying finale, 80-62. After starting the conference schedule 3-2, Arkansas had won 11 straight, and a 24-2 overall record sounded awfully satisfying. But the Hogs wanted more. The Razorbacks packed their bags for the Southeastern Conference Tournament and found themselves in a familiar spot, the Pyramid in Memphis. With hog hats aplenty visible in the stands, top-seeded Arkansas intended to make this tournament its own, but others had the same idea. In a quarterfinal contest against Georgia, the Bulldogs held the upper hand after a half. The momentum shifted toward the Razorbacks in the final 20 minutes, however. Corliss Williamson soon tied the score. And the lead changed hands several times before Darnell Robinson put Arkansas in front for keeps. The Razorbacks rolled from there. Big Nasty lived up to his nickname, finishing with a career-high 30 points on 12 of 19 shooting. The 95-83 final score set up a semifinal meeting with the Kentucky Wildcats. Perhaps a little frustrated because the top dog Hogs had muscled in on what used to be their own personal playground, the 10th-ranked Wildcats aimed to prove a point. Meeting in the tournament semifinals for the second consecutive year, Arkansas and Kentucky turned in a performance worthy of championship game billing. Rick Pitino and his Wildcats knew they would need a nearly perfect effort, and that's just what they provided. Kentucky frequently employed a zone defense to stem the Arkansas onslaught. The ploy forced the Hogs into a season-low 32% shooting from the floor. At the same time, the Wildcats hit 16 three-point shots setting the SEC tournament record. In spite of all that, however, the Razorbacks played a gutsy game. Corliss Williamson, a prime target of the collapsing zone defense, still scored 23 points and pulled down a career-high 16 rebounds. Trailing by as many as 14 points in the second half, Arkansas pulled to within 3 when Scotty Thurman canned a tray. But that was as close as the Razorbacks could get. They would have to set their sights on a different tournament title. The loss in the SEC semifinal hardly detracted from the Razorbacks' enormous accomplishments, and the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee easily recognized that fact. They rewarded Arkansas for its magnificent 25-3 season with a top seed in the Midwest Regional. First round play commenced in Oklahoma City, where Arkansas drew 16th seed North Carolina A&T. Arkansas quickly built a 10-0 lead, but in spite of their own low seed, the Aggies were no pushovers. A&T rallied to take the lead, and Arkansas was on top by just 4 points when the teams headed to the locker rooms for the break. Ultimately, however, Arkansas prevailed by 15 points. Next up in Oklahoma City were John Thompson's Georgetown Hoyas, and they were a tough team to draw as early as the second round. But the Hogs believed they were up to the challenge. Dwight Stewart had a hot hand early, hitting back-to-back three-pointers as the two teams battled closely in the first half. This may have been March Madness, but in the final 20 minutes, the Razorbacks were able to continue a season-long trend. The deep and talented bench helped wear down the Hoyas and gave the edge to Arkansas. But that was Roger Crawford's final basket of the season. A short time later, he broke his ankle. The senior, who had played so well throughout the season, would be confined to the sidelines for the rest of the NCAA tournament. The Hogs had to play on, however, and they did exactly that. In the end, the 85-73 win meant Arkansas was headed to Dallas for a spot in the Sweet 16 and another date with the Tulsa Hurricane. Reunion Arena has long been like a second home to the Hogs, and with the big dance quickening to a rumba, it was nice to be playing in friendly surroundings. The Razorbacks dedicated the rest of their tournament run to the sideline Crawford, honoring him with his number 31 on their jerseys. Not coincidentally, that's how many total wins Arkansas would need for a national title. But the Hurricane was in the way. Upset winners over UCLA and Oklahoma State, while seeded Tulsa was on a roll. And the Razorbacks already knew from prior experience that they couldn't take that team lightly. Fully expecting a dogfight to the finish, the Hogs came out with an intensity dangerous to unsuspecting foes. All-SEC newcomer Darnell Robinson ignited an early 14-0 tear. Clint McDaniel, who recorded a career-high 19 points and 8 rebounds, was more than happy to contribute to the run. Tenacious defense limited Tulsa to a little more than 30% shooting from the field in the first half, and even Gary Collier's 35 points couldn't help the Hurricane. Arkansas's 15-point halftime lead grew larger in the second half, eventually peaking at 25, and the team shot an exceptional 66% from the floor. When the horn sounded on the 19-point win, the Razorbacks had a date in the Elite Eight for the third time in 5 seasons. Sunday, March 27th, dawned with promise when Nolan Richardson was deservingly tabbed as the Naismith National Coach of the Year. But there was no time to savor the accolade. Instead, Nolan had to show why he's the best against the perpetually dangerous Michigan Wolverines in a clash of the saggy-shorted Titans. With a trip to the Final Four on the line, the pressure to perform was intensified by the presence of the Hogs' #1 fan and his family. Michigan's vaunted junior class was aiming for a third consecutive trip to the national championship game. And even without Chris Webber, the Fab Four remained plenty potent. Jawan Howard was especially awesome, tallying 30 points and 13 rebounds. But he was powerless against a 20-1 Arkansas surge early in the game that propelled the Hogs to a 14-point lead. Playing 31 minutes off the bench, McDaniel again was impressive. His performance earned him a spot on the all-regional team alongside Corliss Williamson and Scotty Thurman. And it was another testament to the depth of this Razorback squad. Michigan wouldn't go away, however. The Wolverines dug at the deficit until they had pulled within 2. Arkansas needed to buckle down. Darnell Robinson had the first answer. Smothering defense had succeeded in limiting Williamson's scoring most of the day. But when the game was on the line, Big Nasty delivered. His back-to-back buckets extended the lead to 6 points with less than 2 minutes to play. The Wolverines had their shots, but the Hogs always had an answer. Arkansas made 5 of 6 free throws in the final 17 seconds to seal the victory. The Hogs were headed to Charlotte. The young Razorbacks had lived up to the expectations. They had made it to Charlotte for the Final Four. And accompanying them were what appeared to be about 1 million of their faithful fans, more than eager to revel in the moment. Installed once again as the favorite, Arkansas ignored the prognosticators and concentrated on the tough task at hand, beating the Arizona Wildcats. With President Clinton again on hand, the Razorbacks went to work. Corliss Williamson was unstoppable and unguardable. He muscled his way to 29 points and 13 rebounds on the evening. But Nolan was faced with a sizable dilemma when Corey Beck was whistled for his 4th foul just moments into the second half. All year long, Beck had been the head of the Razorback beast. His numbers weren't huge, but he was indispensable all the same. With Beck on the bench, it was an opening for the Wildcats. Arizona had advanced as far as it did thanks to its impressive backcourt duo of Khalid Reeves and Damon Stoudemire. But they had never faced anything like the Arkansas defense. The pair, known as long-range shooting specialists, in a combined 2 of 22 tray attempts. In spite of that, Arizona held a 5-point lead with just more than 12 minutes to play. The Hogs had to have Beck back in the game, and Nolan knew it. The momentum quickly began to turn. It wasn't long before Dwight Stewart launched a large three for a 68-67 Arkansas lead. The patented Arkansas run had begun. Soon, fans would forget that the game had ever been close. The Hogs won going away, 91-82. And for the first time ever, Arkansas had a date in the final. Arkansas was going to play for the national championship. Festivities in Charlotte kept Razorback rooters busy while they waited for the showdown with Duke. But Monday night couldn't come soon enough for the multitudes of anxious fans, including President Clinton. He proclaimed he wouldn't dream of missing the final. Finally, the moment arrived. After all the hype, after all the glitz, it was time to play the game. Coach Richardson recognized the contributions of senior Ken Biley with a spot in the starting lineup. And not only did Biley start, he also was tasked with guarding Duke All-American Grant Hill in the opening moments. The Blue Devils were certainly accustomed to the spotlight, making their 7th Final Four appearance in 9 years. But the Razorbacks weren't quite so used to the pressure, and they showed it early on, turning the ball over 5 times before scoring a single point. Corliss Williamson, well on his way to Final Four MVP honors, helped settle the team down. His steal and lay-in gave Arkansas its first lead of the game. The two teams battled back and forth for the remainder of the first half. The Hogs held a slim 34-33 lead as the teams headed to the locker room. In the second half, Duke got hot. Early on, the Blue Devils scored 13 unanswered points to take a 48-38 lead. Arkansas might have folded right then and there. Against a team as tournament-tested as Duke, the flustered Hogs had to know rallying from such a hole could be virtually impossible. This was the Final Four, after all, the Blue Devils' personal domain. In a timeout, Nolan told his team to ignore the odds and play like they know how. They did just that. With Corey Beck working masterfully at the controls, the Razorbacks initiated a 23-8 run of their own.
All right, Arkansas with the basketball and a 2-point lead. Corey Beck into the front court. Big offensive possession here for Arkansas. Stewart, top of the key, open for 3. Shot, somebody got a hand on it. Williamson, rebound, puts it up and in and draws a foul.
Corliss Williamson looked like an outfielder looking at a fly ball.
But now it was Duke's turn to fight back. The 5-point Arkansas lead disappeared, and it was a duel to the finish.
Razorbacks, every offensive possession, both these teams is critical now.
Well, because the Hogs can put immense pressure on the Blue Devils with baskets.
Back out front for the Razorbacks, brings it down the right side, all the way inside, goes in for the shot, blocked by Hill. Capel gets it, brings it down the floor. Left side, Capel goes baseline, shot blocked by Williamson. Corey Beck comes up. Ahead it goes to Antonio Lang. Out now to Grant Hill, pulls up, jumper for 3, good.
Well, the Hogs had a couple of chances to put some distance between them and Duke, and now Duke ties it up.
Grant Hill.
Arkansas took a timeout to diagram a play and talk strategy. But when play resumed, the Razorbacks had trouble finding an open shot, and time was growing short.
10 to go. 15 on the shot clock. Corey Beck takes it to the left side of the floor. Beck looking inside, nothing there. Spits it out to McDaniel. Exactly 1 minute to play.
Shot clock's at 10.
Back to the baseline, spits it out to Stewart. Right side, Thurman. He's open for 3, good! Scotty Thurman with his third 3. Arkansas leads it by 3 with 48 seconds to go.
And the ball was in the air when the shot clock went off. That's how big that was.
73-70.
Arkansas was in command, but Duke wasn't done. Failing to convert, the Blue Devils had no choice but to foul. Beck went to the line, but wasn't permitted to take his second shot because he had blood on his hand. So Alex Dillard came off the bench and calmly swished it for a 5-point lead. The Arkansas defense would have to do the rest. Cherokee Parks made it a 3-point game with 10 seconds left. But another Hog free throw extended the score to 76-72. All of Arkansas held its breath.
Make a big play if he makes this last free throw.
What a big one this would be. On the way. Good! Clint McDaniel with the free throw. Arkansas by 4, 76-72. Duke. Grant Hill loses the ball. Dwight Stewart, outlet to McDaniel. Arkansas wins the national championship. The Arkansas Razorbacks have completed the dream season. And the Hogs have won the national championship 76-72 over the Duke Blue Devils. Arkansas with its first ever national championship. Oliver Miller, the former Razorback, on the floor giving hugs to Razorbacks. And this crowd, this Arkansas crowd is going nuts. Arkansas with its first ever national championship in its first ever try in the title game.
In the joyous aftermath, it was hard to single out just one hero. Was it Beck, whose court leadership had meant so much? Was it Big Nasty, whose season-long contributions in the paint bordered on the impossible? Was it Scotty Thurman, who knew perfectly well he could hit that three-point shot just as he had so many times before? Was it Nolan Richardson, whose brilliant coaching had assembled all the talented pieces into a cohesive whole? It was all of them, of course, and it was none of them, because what had made the 1994 Arkansas Razorbacks so successful was bigger and better than any one individual. It was a season-long total team effort, a scrappy group of young men who had started with a dream. And now, the dreams had all come true. The Arkansas Razorbacks were